Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Red Cyber Dragon. My name is Red, and today we're going to be talking about a book I recently read called Red Rising. It's a teen, young adult dystopian book. Kind of came out in the wake of the Hunger Games, but I think this book is amazing. It explores political and revolutionary themes as well as social justice themes that I am very interested in. I typically talk about politics on my channel. I don't usually talk about literature, but I wanted to try something new today and see if maybe people would be interested. So, Red Rising is the first installation in a series of books written by Pierce Brown. It was published in 2014 and was pretty successful when it came out. It's part of an original trilogy. I believe there is now also a second trilogy that I haven't read yet. I've finished the first trilogy. So, anyways, Red Rising takes place on Mars. And essentially this takes place in a world where humans colonized the solar system, basically. They colonized Mars, Venus, Mercury, any other planets that they could land on, and also their moons. And now, essentially, a kingdom rules over the solar system. And our main character, his name is Darrow. And he works as a helium-3 miner in the depths of Mars. And essentially, he and his family believe that they are working on Mars to terraform it to get it ready for the rest of Earth to come there because Earth is supposedly dying. Although, as I've already sort of spoiled for you, that's not really the case. But anyways, so we start our journey with Darrow. He's what's called a hell diver, which means he basically goes and mines in like a special kind of suit. It's dangerous work. A lot of people die doing it. Basically, they dive into hell. That's why they call it being a hell diver. And he's from a place on Mars called Lycos, and a member of the Lambda clan. Now, in this world, there's a whole hierarchy of races. Basically, the human race has been split into several different sort of types, denominated by color. And at the top, you have gold, and at the very bottom, you have what are called reds. And it doesn't really refer to the color of their skin, usually like their eyes or their hair color, but also like certain other attributes about them and what their job is, right? So reds are just basically the lowest form of labor, right? And then you have this group called obsidians, are just very large, bred for war kind of, but they're still human. The point of the book is that everybody is still human, despite like the stereotypes. But there's this whole hierarchy, basically. They live in this place called the Society. There's a whole hierarchy of colors, gold at the top, red at the bottom. Our hero, Darrow of Lycos, is a helium-3 miner called a helldiver. I think he's about 16 when the book starts, and he's already married because Reds on Lycos get married pretty early. And the first thing we learn about Darrow essentially is that he is a huge wife guy, right? He loves his wife. And like the way he talks about his wife, EO, just like, it's like if the feelings you had during a high school romance were actually real. Like he's basically like, there's lots of shit going on in the world. I don't really care about any of that as long as I have my love, EO. And you can guess what's going to happen. So essentially, although Darrow is very happy just living his life and being married to EO, or at least he says he is, EO is very much not satisfied. EO talks about a better world. EO believes that Red shouldn't have to suffer under the power of gold. Darrow doesn't really think about it too much, although something happens to him kind of at the beginning that starts to show him really how unfair the society is. So like I said, Darrow is a helium-3 miner, and the way they incentivize these helium-3 miners is by giving them, quotas, and different clans, basically families, have different quotas or have a quota that they have to beat. And if they do the best, they win something called the laurel, which basically just means extra food because these people are kept pretty near starving a lot of the time. So Darrow is down drilling for helium, is trying to beat the quota. By the way, he really likes his job. He likes being a hell diver. He likes working the machine. But essentially, he gets the highest quota for the Lambda clan, right? He basically risks his life. He has to climb out of his suit to grab something. I don't remember exactly what happened, but he almost dies so that they can win the laurel. Well, it turns out the laurel's rigged, and it really isn't ever going to go to Lambda. It always goes to Gamma because this is a corrupt society. This is just a corrupt society. That's how it is, you know? And like Darrow's uncle is kind of trying to like dissuade him from pursuing the laurel. And then once Darrow basically finds out that the whole thing was rigged all along, it becomes clear why his uncle was trying to discourage him from getting it. Anyways, after that, he's very upset. But his wife, Io, takes him away to show him basically a garden built in the Mars underground. It looks just like the surface of Earth is supposed to. You know, these people have never been on the surface, never seen a plant or anything. And Io and Darrow go there, and it's very beautiful. And they make love. And then, but then they're caught. They're caught by someone named Ugly Dan. Ugly Dan is a gray. The grays are security forces. They're above Obsidians, so they're not just brute force, but like they're basically cops. They're fucking cops, man. Just the fucking worst. Ugly Dan. Yeah, that's about right. Ugly Dan catches them, and you know, this whole hierarchy thing is like, well, you know, the golds treat us grays like shit, but at least I'm not a red. And so Ugly Dan's quite angry at Io and Darrow for daring to step foot in a gray only area, you know, basically. And the punishment for this is a lashing, several lashings, a public lashing for both of them. And right before they're about to get lashed, Io says to Darrow something along the lines of, you have to promise to help me make a better world. You have to promise me. And then basically Io goes up, gets lashed, but then basically sings a protest song. It's a song that's forbidden. She sings a protest song in front of the arch-governor, a gold, who is, you know, basically in charge of all of Mars. So she starts singing this protest song in front of him, and then he's like, oh, fuck. Actually, your punishment is now death. And so they hang Io. And on Mars, the gravity's not great enough for people to be hanged, so the family members pull on their loved one's legs to complete the hanging. It's really horrible, because basically, if not, you're like up there hanging by your neck, but you can't actually die. It's awful. So Darrow is obviously very depressed after this. He got his lashings, but like he is obviously just a wreck. He loved his wife a lot. They don't let the family members bury their loved ones, which is just like another, just more cruelty from the Golds. And so Darrow basically steals his wife's body to go bury her in the place where they got caught. And then obviously he's caught and taken down. And then he talks to his uncle, who gives him a drink or something. And then basically he gets hanged too. Darrow gets hanged also. But as you can imagine, his uncle gave him something to drink beforehand, and he passed out and survived. So that's the end of part one. Basically, Darrow starts to realize on his own some of the unfairness of this society. And then there's like an inciting incident, and Io, his wife, gets murdered by the government, essentially, and also expresses to him that she wants him to fight for a better world, no matter what happens to her. And so that's kind of the end of the part one, kind of sets everything up. So in part two, Darrow wakes up after his hanging, and it turns out that his uncle helped him fake his death and took him outside of the Red Colony, basically, to someone named Dancer. Dancer is a leader. See, what's his full name? Dancer O'Farron. This is one of my favorite characters. Dancer O'Farron is basically, he's a bit of a Boy Scout. He is deeply committed to, you know, liberation. He's willing to do the long work of freeing his people. I believe Darrow calls him a socialist at one point, so he's my kind of guy. And the other person is named Harmony. I forget her exactly. She's also a Red and a member of this group that's trying to take down the government called the Sons of Ares, right? So basically, the Sons of Ares find Darrow and take him in. And then they tell him, your Uncle Nero has been working for us for, years, and he took you to us. He also says, we were able to record EO's hanging and broadcast it basically, I think, everywhere on Mars. So, like, Reds all over the planet basically saw this injustice take place, which is a big deal. So, anyways, they didn't just bring him to this guerrilla group to live. They have a mission for him. So, Darrow is going to infiltrate the society by basically, this is a bit of a cyberpunk novel, because basically they have these people called cutters who will, I guess they're not implanting stuff in you, but basically, because there are physical differences between like reds and golds. Reds are really small, golds are very big. Essentially, they want to do surgery on him, give him an appearance of a gold, and then have him infiltrate the golds by going to the Institute, which is basically a military school. And so this whole thing is kind of like mind-blowing to Darrow, because Darrow doesn't even know that there are other colors besides reds and golds. He finds out that there's all these colors in the middle, that Mars has actually already been terraformed, and there's like 1,000 cities there, and that the reds of Mars are being lied to. There's also two groups of reds: the low reds, the ones who basically know nothing and live in colonies beneath the surface, and the high reds, who kind of take basic manual labor, but they don't have to live underground, basically. So Darrow gets all kinds of surgeries, goes through all kinds of physical training. He gets trained on cultural stuff about gold, fitting into gold society and things like that. Also like academics, because he has to take an exam. Darrow obviously is like grown to hate the golds at this point. He's very, angry that they've taken his wife from him, and is, definitely raring to fight. So basically, he takes the exam, gets into the Institute, meets a couple of people. Two I'll mention right now: Julian Obalona, the son of a, very powerful gold, and several Obarka, who's kind of this like skinny, like, I imagine the author is a Harry Potter fan, and this character is supposed to, in some ways, evoke images of Severus Snape. So that's why his name is Severo. But yeah, he's not like a bad guy, but like kind of like a little, like, he's weird. He's a bit of an outcast, basically. He's like a little shit, kind of. He comes off as a little shit, a little stinker, All right. And essentially, at the Institute, you get sorted into a house. I think there's like 12 of them. And the weird thing, but we'll get to it in a minute, but it's a little misleading to call this like a school. In my opinion, it's more of a battle royale. But anyways, but like with teams, it's like a team battle royale. Anyway, the first thing you have to do at the Institute, basically, is kill someone. So after they go to bed on the first night, Darrow gets woken up, stripped naked, and beaten by two giant obsidians. And they take him to a dark and stony room, and they throw him in there along with one other person. And the House Mars proctor, his name is Fitchner, comes in and is basically like, one of you will have to kill the other, get the ring in order to leave. One of you has to die. And Darrow's opponent ends up being Julian Albalona, the guy he likes. He met him on the transport there. And he's Cassius's brother. And it's really horrifying, really trying to get across the violence and the horribleness of it. The writing is very good, but eventually, Darrow kills Julian and puts on the ring. And yeah, basically 100 people were in this, class, and like half of them are meant to die the first night. Typically, and it's not supposed to be a fair fight. Like they put like really strong people against relatively weak people. And Severo was supposed to die. He was a low draft, but he ended up killing the other person. And so now that the passage is over, that's what it's called. Killing the other person is called the passage. Once the passage is over, basically you're in a big kind of arena. There's 12 houses, and they're all playing a big game of like capture the flag, basically. To win, they must make one house out of the many, Fitchner says, usually by capturing slaves using the standard each house is given, basically a flag. You press it to their foreheads, I think, and they have to become your slave. Fitchner explains that the slaves are only bound by honor and may rebel or disregard orders from their new house under only the consequence of dishonor. But if you are dishonorable, like that affects your graduation and future prospects. Students are not allowed to kill unless it's inevitable or accidental, although, like, we are not done with death in this for sure. Darrow eventually gets the nickname Reaper due to one of his weapons of choice being a scythe. Unfortunately, House Mars is not unified. Turns out that committing murder against the other half of your house is not a great way to kick off, unity in an organization. Who knew? And basically, the house devolves into two factions. One led by Darrow and Cassius, and the other one, it's actually, they break into four kind of factions. One is led by Titus, and Titus is an asshole. He's giant. He's a dick. He sexually assaults the female golds that they've captured as slaves, basically. It's bad. It's really not good. And there's another faction led by someone named Antonia. Antonia is horrible. She's an awful person. She basically goes with whoever's going to win. Terrible. Darrow and Cassius stick together. They are friends. And then, lastly, Severo is kind of on his own. I forgot to mention this. I was saying, like, Severo is kind of like he's kind of a little shit. They literally call him Goblin. Like, they call him Goblin. But not everything is as it seems with that character. He appears to have significant survival skills. Severo does. Darrow makes a couple of friends, Cassius and another person named Roke, and two other people called Leah and Quinn. Yeah, so Titus is terrible. They have no food, so they have to raid other castles for it. And Titus is brutal. He uses torture, rape, and murder, basically. And so basically, Darrow has to handle this. Like, he's got to get his own house in order before he can, continue with what he's trying to do, right? So he basically goes to the next house, House Minerva, led by a woman named Mustang. And she goes there, Darrow goes over there and basically tricks Mustang into attacking Titus for them. Essentially, at this point, after the raid on Titus, I'm reading from the wiki. I don't remember this part necessarily, but like apparently Darrow and Cassius are stuck in the middle of a frozen lake, about to die, surrounded by the Minervans who don't really care, but they are saved by Severo. And this is kind of how Severo becomes in with Darrow. And Severo likes wolves, and he killed a wolf and wears a wolf skin. And he's in a group. They call themselves the Howlers. The Howlers. Ow! Okay, so after he's rescued by Severo, sorry, I had to look it up for a second. After he's rescued by Severo, they have a small skirmish with the Minervans. They trade the captured Mars people for the, captured Minervans, and then they kind of move on. Mustang warns Darrow that there's another student who is basically determined to come out on top because he's the son of the arch-governor, person who killed EO, and his name is the Jackal. And he's a piece of shit. We'll get to that. Well, actually, you don't really find out. I'm gonna have to fucking cut this out because I don't want you to know. Okay, basically, all right. So then, at this point, Titus is captive, and they have to decide what to do with him. He's been raping and murdering people. He's not a great guy. You do not want to keep him around. He could be real trouble. He does not care. He does not have any loyalty to House Mars or anything like that. So essentially, it's like he's kind of got to go. I really hope the cricket in here does not turn up in the video because every time I stop talking, it goes. It's like, come on, you have to have more interesting things to say. Anyways, big revelation. I can't remember. Oh, there's this thing where like Reds have their own like linguistic tendencies and they always say bloody damn, but Golds will always say gory damn. So after Titus is captured, basically the way he's talking and the fact that he says bloody damn basically gives away that he's also a red. So Titus, the guy who was raping and murdering people like crazy and was evil as fuck, is basically there on a revenge rampage because he's also a red that's been recarved as a gold. Did I call them cutters before? I meant to call them carvers. Carvers are plastic surgeons. But anyways, that's the big revelation. And Darrow kills him. And so at this point, basically, the Jackal has become the main, op for Darrow. And the Jackal, being the son of the Archgovernor, is likely cheating and gives something called a hollow cube to Cassius, which is basically like a tape recording. And this reveals to Cassius that Darrow is the one who killed Julian. And Julian then essentially lures Darrow out and stabs him in the stomach and leaves him to die and becomes the head of the House Mars. So then Mustang, remember the woman in charge of House Minerva, finds Darrow and basically nurses him back to health. And then Darrow and Mustang begin recruiting people who were slaves but abandoned the house that they were enslaved to. They recruit them as basically, workers and not as forced labor, forced soldiers. So then Darrow gets to work showing that he's still alive. He frees some House Mars captives, including one of my favorite characters, Pax Altelemanus, who's just like this big giant guy, but he is actually quite gentle and caring and has a dad who taught him, the right values. And he's very close with Mustang. So then they go to attack House Ceres. They capture House Ceres. One of Darrow's friends, Tactus, apparently tried to assault one of the House Ceres girls, right? And this becomes an important point because he handles Tactus much differently than he handles Titus. Instead of killing Tactus, he gets lashed. But then Darrow has Pax slash Darrow, saying that whatever crimes are committed by one are committed by everybody, and kind of building the morale and instilling quite a bit of loyalty in them, right? It's a pretty ballsy move. You're like, yeah, you get a lashing for what you did because what you did was fucked up, but I'm your leader and I'm responsible, so I'm also in trouble and I get lashes too. Sort of a way of spreading the pain, but making it easier. You can imagine someone doing this. It instills loyalty. It instills morale, right? Continuity error red here with a new hat and shirt and necklace. You could probably guess that from when I said it was a continuity error. Anyway, so let's finish up this discussion of Red Rising real quick. I won't go into too many details at the end. I think it's some really good storytelling, some betrayals, some twists you may not expect. But essentially, Darrow, you can probably imagine, like Darrow at the end, let's just say Darrow goes and he gets a very highly coveted position with Governor Augustus, who, if you remember, is the governor of Mars who murdered his. So essentially, Augustus has no idea that his new apprentice is the husband of the red he killed. And the only reason he even remembers the red he killed is because of what the Sons of Ares did by broadcasting her death across red colonies, right? So like there really has been like an uprising started just by that. And now Darrow is his wife's murder's apprentice. So in the perfect position to wreak havoc upon the society in the future, which he does. It's a pretty awesome series. I recommend keep reading it. If you guys like this video, I'll keep making videos on this. I think it's really cool. Like I said, you can probably tell I'm a fucking political streamer. I'm a political streamer, political content maker. Like that is my thing. I fucking love this book because it's like it is a little bit of escapism, but it's undeniably connected to like how we live now in America. It's a very clear to me critique of capitalism, of so-called. I mean, they don't have liberal democracy like it is, but it's essentially an oligarchy. But it's really not that different in practice from what a liberal democracy ends up being. So I don't know. Like I said, we can keep talking about this book if people like it. I certainly do. I love this genre of books too. There's another great couple of books by an author named Shiran J. Zhao, Iron Widow and Heavenly Tyrant. Heavenly Tyrant is like explicitly communist. Like it is terrific. It is a terrific, but it's not like it is very obvious but it's not like in your face to the point where like you're like, oh, this is cringe, you know, or stupid or whatever. And in many ways, Heavenly Tyrant is like actually educational about politics. Anyway, I won't get into that. I can make a video on that book, definitely. All right, well, if you liked this video, give me a like and subscribe. You can catch me streaming most days on Twitch at twitch.tv, Red Cyber Dragon 29, or right here on YouTube. Thank you, everybody. I'm Red. This is Red Cyber Dragon. Solidarity forever, and a better world is possible.